Dr. Robert Grupe is the author of The Change, a textbook for guided corporate transformation, and Creating the Future, containing his most requested radio commentaries. Featured in Who's Who in America, he has given keynote presentations at Oklahoma City University, the University of Central Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State University, among others. For 6 years, he hosted the television program Creating the Future on Cox Cable. A father with 4 children, all served by the Oklahoma City educational system, Dr. Grupe has a personal and abiding interest in the work of the Oklahoma City Educational Television Consortium.
Workforce development. It's the effective and expanding focus of the educational offerings that we're going to discuss in this program. Cutting-edge training designed to be the springboard to success for Oklahoma business and job seekers. With me is Patrick Clannon, Account Executive, and Shane Snyder, Instructor, Drone Academy, a unique academy at OKCCC that deals with small unmanned aerial systems. Patrick, let's talk from the standpoint of an overview of this program.
Sure. What students are going to get with our the Drone Academy is they're going to receive standardized testing or curriculum. What they're also going to receive with the class is an actual quadcopter with a camera. Then what they're also going to get are FAA regulations. They're going to be taught the right way to fly and respect of the airspace and the proper way to do things.
So you have a system, right, that has to be there, and I imagine the regulations are going to be coming out even more extensively, so people who maybe are looking at it as a hobby need to understand the laws
exactly
that are involved with drones. Well, Shane, you are the instructor.
Correct.
This is a new program, so lead us into this.
Well, I've talked to a lot of guys already when I tell them we're going to start teaching this, and they're like, oh, why do we need to learn to fly these? And we already can kind of figure it out. Well, there's obviously not a lot of skilled individuals out there because we're having tons and tons of incidents. The FAA is already cracking down, and they're requiring crazy, insane amounts of rules to be able to fly these. Our class is we're going to bring you in a very controlled environment, provide you with the quadcopter, and train you. We're gonna train you first on a simulator, which you will also be able to take the simulator software with you. And we'll talk about the laws, the legislature, how to do this safely, what the future is going to hold for this. There's so many different aspects, and we're going to teach you how to, the main thing, just to do it safely.
So there are certifications.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk a little more about those.
Well, currently, pretty much anybody can fly one of these recreationally as long as it's not commercial, you're not making any kind of money. But there are rules. You can't fly within 5 miles of an airport unless you have direct permission from the tower. You cannot fly over national parks. There's a few other rules. You can't fly over huge groups of people that go to a football game. You cannot fly one, period. If you want to do this commercially to make money, you have to get an exemption from the FAA, and currently you have to have a pilot's license. Now, these things are all going to be changed in the future. We don't know what the FAA is going to do, but I'm sure it will still be pretty strict.
But your university will be on top of all those changes.
Correct.
You will be teaching that. And of course, maintenance procedures, too. That's a whole other area involved in
Absolutely. You can be the most skilled pilot on the planet, and if you don't maintain your craft correctly, it's going to fail in the air. You may or may not be able to recover it, or recover it without it hurting somebody. But maintaining is very, very important, and there's a lot of aspects to it. You don't want someone just trying to grease something, trying to do this, trying to replace things incorrectly and causing damage that may not show itself until it's 500 feet in the air.
And not only that, but it's also firmware, the software that has to do with the
Absolutely. There's a lot of guys that are going into the actual software and the firmware of the devices and changing it. And some companies are a little, they actually want you to do this, but still in a safe manner. And I don't really like the idea of it so far, but that actually is becoming pretty popular.
Well, Patrick, what is so exciting is this is a new program. It's a new university. You're getting ready for your first foray into this.
Yes, absolutely. And we see it becoming really big for training, for folks that are going into industry. We kind of feel like that with the demand of training will go up once rules are softened for folks that are wanting to go into it commercially. So we want to stay ahead of that curve.
And in so doing, I think this is one of the least risky academies that I've seen starting, because there's such a need for this. Because you have, I'm going to say probably more than dozens, you have many, many individuals who have this as hobbies.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. And just the industry itself, currently they're estimating about $6.4 billion is being spent right now for the development of drones and UASs. That's supposed to almost double by 2024 to $11.5 billion. There's going to be a huge market for this. There's things you can do with them no one's thought of yet, and 100 things that no one's really tried.
And it seems to me that that's going to multiply the regulations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're just going to, as soon as you find one new thing, there's going to be someone that says, well, that's a little dangerous. I don't know if we should allow that or not. So we'll, of course, I'm sure we'll modify the class, or we'll talk more and more about it, and whatever classes they require in the future.
Is this a class that could be held every month? How many hours to the class?
Well, currently it's an 18 credit hour class, and we're going to spread it out, I believe, over 6 evenings. We'll change it up pretty much based on what the driving force who wants to take this class wants to do, and what we're available to teach. It'll be 3-hour classes, 6 nights over 2 weeks.
Yep.
And we may or may not do Saturday classes or a mixture of the two. And we'd love to do at least one every month, but if there's more than we can fit in, we'll just as necessary bring more guys in.
I can really see this growing. OSSC, where is the class actually taught?
It's at our PDI building over at Crossroads off 240 and I-35.
Yep.
And it's a great big shop facility area, so we've got 20, 30-foot ceilings, plenty of room to fly these things around. The little ones they're going to be flying are 12 by 12 inches, give or take, and you can crash them.
You learn how to use the little guys without getting in any trouble.
Absolutely.
Fantastic computer area for our simulation room as well. So.
Very, very good.
Well, let me ask you this, Shane. How did you get interested in doing this?
Well, I've been a fan of aviation my whole life. I almost got into it as a career and ended up doing auto mechanics instead, but I took remote control aircraft as a huge hobby over the last 5 or 6 years, and I've taught a few classes here on some compressed natural gas in the past, and that guy knew that I was real passionate about RC, and he called me up earlier this year, said, hey, we're starting up this drone program, how would you feel about teaching it? I felt very privileged to even be offered, and super excited. Said, yeah,
moving your hobby to your work.
Absolutely.
My goodness, how many times do you get to do that?
Yeah, almost never. So I cracked down, and I've been on the internet ever since, researching and learning and practicing, and it's been a lot of fun. And I think this is just going to be an absolute tremendous class when it's done.
And learning from you why you're in it and why you're involved. I think anybody viewing knows you're going to be a fantastic instructor, because this is something you really enjoy, and you want to impart that knowledge, and you'll be gaining more as time goes along.
Absolutely.
Keeping the learning process going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to be on top of it. I own one. I fly it daily, and I'm looking to get hopefully a couple more in the future.
What are some of the technological improvements and enhancements that you're seeing down the road that's going to make this even more incredible as a little machine?
Well, right now, one of the best things that's come out with them is just the GPS holds on a lot of them, where they maintain where they are, and pretty well. There's a light failure rate on them, but it's not really too bad. But with that ability, you can tell them to go places. You can program a predetermined map and flight plan, and people are doing this right now with mapping, and they go and have a huge property and program probably a fixed wing for a little further flight, and they fly this thing zigzag. You don't have to fly it, it tells it where to go, and you can just imagine the possibilities of stuff like this. You program it, you don't actually have to fly it. There was a group in Zurich recently who programmed, I think it was 3 quadcopters, specially designed for this purpose, and they built a rope bridge autonomously. They gave them the programming, no one flew it, no one did anything, they just programmed them, and they built a makeshift rope bridge and actually walked on them, and it was weight bearing. It was just unbelievable what these things can do. And I can't even think of the possibilities that it's going to be available in the future.
And that kind of dovetails into, when we look at your class, 18 credit hours, about how much of that is in-class theory, how much of it is on-hands application?
It's probably going to be about 50-50. We really want to push the hands-on stuff. I want to make sure people get to where they know to fly these things. Because of course there are issues occasionally, hardware, that just are not controllable. And say you lose a GPS lock while you're flying and you spend a lot of money on a multi-rotor, it does most of the flying for you. You don't really worry about it. You think, I don't have to learn to fly these. And then something goes wrong. What do? You need to be able to fall back on a set of skills to be able to fly it back. So we really want to push that. So probably about 50-50 in the classroom.
Now, what about other parts of the country that are implementing some classes similar to this? How are they faring?
I'm not really sure on the other classes. The class that we're teaching with SkyOp in conjunction with them, they're very full. In fact, I don't think they're keeping up as far as I know.
Yeah, their classes
let's speak to that.
They're really big in New York. That's where SkyOp is out of, and that's who our curriculum provider is. They are seeing it really take off at Mohawk Valley Community College and what was the other one that started with an M? But it's been huge there, huge success.
And as we were talking before the program, I think that portends extremely well because Oklahoma City is a large metroplex area. Mm-hmm. When you consider everything from El Reno to Norman and all the way around, about 1 million.
Oh, yeah.
You've got quite a bit to work with here.
Yeah, we'll be one of the, if not the only institution teaching
mm-hmm.
it.
So this is exciting. And what about variations in length of course? Do you see things coming up in the future that would even expand the course more? I know you've got to start out with something. You've got 18 credit hours.
Yeah, I know we will, because I know the FAA is they're going to change the regulations right now. Like I said earlier, you have to have a pilot's license to do it commercially. That's kind of out of a lot of people's reach. So I'm sure they will change it, but I'm sure you will still have to have training. So they may take a course like this one in particular, or other ones, and we'll have to adapt to whatever they want the consumer to do in order to fly these things
so
commercially.
That could make some differences fairly quickly,
yes.
But you'll be right on the cutting edge of that. Mm-hmm. But also when you say that they have to have a pilot's license, let's talk about that for a minute. What do you mean, they have to be able to fly an aircraft?
Well, remember, to do it recreationally, you do not have to have anything but to fly safely. But to be commercial, you have to have a minimum of a sport pilot's license up. Commercial, private pilot, any of these actual pilot's licenses where you've gotten up in a full-scale airplane, you've learned, they've given you an aircraft certificate. That is what is required currently to fly drones commercially.
Commercially, okay, there we go. But a hobbyist can still come in and get the safety background.
Absolutely. A guy that wants to take magnificent videos and he's just not quite sure how to fly this thing, and he has the budget to do this, he wants to do more, he needs to probably take this course.
Yep.
So what are the enrollment options? Every month people would just contact you, and there will be a number at the end of this program. They will contact you all and find out when the next class starts, and
absolutely,
and just become a part of it.
And get them registered. Let's
talk about some of the current regulations. What are they going to learn when they're in class? Now, I understand they're going to work with the quadcopter, but what are you making them aware of and helping them become proficient as far as things to avoid doing?
I think we're going to talk a lot about privacy, current legislature, future legislature, some of the bills that have tried to be passed that were not passed. Currently there was a bill passed in California where it was passed temporarily, where they wanted to limit any flight whatsoever to 350 feet or less over people's houses. And then 2 days later, the governor, he vetoed it. He said, no, it's too broad. So we're going to talk about all these things, what congressmen all over the country are trying to do with it, how you're going to maintain it safely without worrying too much, just how to be legal, what systems to go through to get your exemption. If you need to get a pilot's license, I'll talk about that, what you need to do to get a pilot's license, the quickest, cheapest, most efficient way for you to do that.
And I guess also just looking at when the class is in process, you may learn about new rules and regulations during that time.
On a daily basis, I'm sure.
But your antenna's up, so you're going to know to make that a part of the process. Well, Patrick, there is an overview to this, and from what I'm understanding is that in other parts of the country, and where you were referring to before, it's an overwhelming success.
Yes,
So
it's been big.
we need that here, and our time has gone by so quickly. Patrick Clannon, account executive, and Shane Snyder, instructor, Drone Academy with OCCC. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Francis Tuttle Aircraft Sheet Metal Training Program is an amazing program because more than 93% of graduates are being employed in the Oklahoma aerospace industry. I have with me Kenny Payton, who's the Aircraft Assembly and Structural Repair Instructor with Francis Tuttle Technology Center. And Kenny, let's talk about this innovative program that's been so successful.
Well, actually, the innovation came from a need from one of the local companies that couldn't get the experienced people they needed, and they were afraid they were going to have to move their corporation out of the state to keep their contract. So we offered our services to train entry-level people to fill those positions, and subsequently it became an industry, more for industry than a specific company. And now we're embedded deeply with Tinker Air Force Base, Air Inc., now known as Field Aviation, AAR, Aircraft and Modification, and Will Rogers, and a lot of the smaller companies in the Oklahoma City metro area.
Well, and some people might say, sheet metal work, anybody can do that.
Well, let's not call it sheet metal work. Let's call it structural repair. An airplane has no frame, so the fuselage itself is the structure. So it's very important to keep it in first-class shape and repair it the correct way.
And I'm sure there are regulations and standards.
Exactly.
Very high for something that's going to be 35,000 feet in the air.
Exactly, and a lot of it, taking care of our military fleet. So we do a lot of shop time. 20% of the time is classroom time. 80% is hands-on. So a lot of repetitive training.
So what are some of the things that are involved in when you teach? I guess you call it theory. What do you cover? Regulations? What are some things?
The regulations are taken care of mostly by the corporations themselves. You have to know the parameters of the regulations. But as far as the inspection portion of it, that's taken care of in a different department. The theory that we teach mostly in the classroom is proper terminology for the industry. A new industry has all new words in it, so we get them familiar with that. And the basics of safety, aerodynamics, and then we go out in the shop and really highlight on all the machinery and tools and hand skills you have to have.
And how do the right tools come into play to make sure that they get the right learning experience hands-on?
You can't replicate everything, and what I've found that 40 years in the business is you never have exactly everything you need, so you become very creative. So we duplicate that. We'll let them use some of the best tools in the industry, and then we take those away from them because they won't be handy, they won't be at their dire need every day. So you have to kind of make a situation difficult.
Teaching them to be innovative.
That's correct.
To be creative in a positive way.
That's right.
If that's necessary. I notice here it says that this training program, a training program here, began in 2004.
That's correct.
And Jet Service Enterprises, AAR, they were turning away work because they didn't have a qualified sheet metal.
Correct. There's no other place in the United States that you can get this training and not be embedded with a company already hired on at a company. So it's a pretty unique learning experience. And we've placed, like you said, 93%. Pretty good average.
That's pretty amazing for any class to place 93%, really.
Yeah. And it's the people after we do the background checks and the interviews, we find out that if they really want to delve off into a new career, then we're more than willing to help them.
Well, there's quite a history to this. About 4 years ago, breaking new ground, developing a partnership. You want to talk about that?
Well, we were fortunate enough to be invited in to help develop a certification program. Not to demean the aircraft and power plant license, but we wanted more of a certification towards a structured program like ours, more so on the hands-on than the theory. And we kind of replicate what the Canadians are doing, and they have a structures license. So when you get certified to work on an airplane, you can actually inspect and sign off your own work. So it's a pretty prestigious deal. It's going to be similar to the automotive SAE standards and certifications.
So, working with Tinker Air Force Base, you're in, I guess, constant communication with any needs, changes that they will have.
We have a lot of feedback. I actually teach the internship class at night. They are required to have 16 weeks of additional training on their path. We call it a pathways class, an agreement with Career Tech and Tinker Air Force Base. So we kind of debrief them every evening and find out, is there anything that we can help you with that would help your employment. So it's a constant, like I said, it's a constant evolving program. We change it to fit the needs of the customer, whoever the customer may be.
And also I noticed that some people who might come in and have sheet metal experience, you were taking them through a particular test. I think it was called a plate test?
Correct.
And some didn't pass.
That's true. Resumes aren't always a good example of your work history. I can write a good resume, but when you get tasked to show that you actually can do it, sometimes it doesn't always work out as easy. And we do assessment tests for some of the local companies, both on the structure side and the electrical and avionics side. So we help them. We facilitate it. Their company representatives come in. We help set up the test. We have some examples of how pieces of the airplane to run the wiring harnesses on or do repairs on, and actually find out if they can do everything they say they can do.
Where are your classes held? Where are they held?
We're at the 122nd Rockwell, the Northwest Campus, Francis Tuttle. We've got 8,000 square foot shop, and then all of our stuff is adult driven. There's no high school level in this. You have to be out of high school and ready to go to work. And we take people from first year out of graduation to people that I've worked with that were wanting to get back in aerospace that were at retirement age. So
let's walk through the class from the standpoint of the length of the class and just a little bit of how they go through this process of learning.
To summarize it, it's a total of 300 hours, and we run day classes and night classes, 4 days a week. Kind of give everybody a break on a Friday to gather their wits about them. We have 5 classes at a time, two day classes and 3 night classes. Each class is a capacity of 12 people, so we have about 144 students a year maximum. The class length in calendars, the day classes are 2 6-week components, and the night classes are 3 6-week components. Kind of broken up with a little, we call them a mini vacation in there for everybody. Good work surroundings, people that I end up being friends with them. It's not a student-instructor relationship, it's more of a friendship. So
right.
It becomes, you're invested in these people. And we stay in touch all the time. Even past graduates become, lifelong friends.
Well, and with the phenomenal placement that you have here, they pick up from you how excited you are about all of this.
I'm very motivated. There's a lot of things I could do for a living, but this is very rewarding. Help people find new careers. Most of them are not unemployed. They're underemployed. So they're just looking to step up, have a good, solid future. And the aerospace industry has its ups and downs at times, but overall it's a very solid career.
Well, in this aircraft assembly and structural repair, are you the instructor? Are there several instructors?
We have 3 instructors total, two daytime. I both do a day and a night class, so I'm there from daylight till dark. The other 2 instructors are guys that I've worked with in the industry for 40 years, so we all have a real close relationship. We all train to the same target. We combination train classes, so it's really a well-structured. It's not a typical school atmosphere. You know, nobody likes sitting in a classroom. But when you see that they're losing focus, you get them up, take them out in the shop, make them shoot some rivets or drill them out.
How did you get interested in this, and what is your background? I think that's an interesting question because it helps the viewer to realize why you're excited about this.
Oh, right after high school, I had the opportunity to go to work with a company called Rockwell International. Before that, it was Aero Commander, Aero Design, and it gets in you unload a pallet of aluminum one day, and the next day you see an airplane fly off. There's no other industry that's that rewarding. So I've been in it ever since. And once again, it's a big industry, but a small community. So everybody kind of watches out for everybody.
And like you were telling me before the program, you're not so much as a flight person, but you like to see the aircraft go up and not come down because of what you all
That's exactly right.
Keeping everything together.
Well, there's nothing, I live in the flight pattern of Will Rogers Airport, and there's nothing more rewarding to sit on the tailgate of your pickup and drink a glass of iced tea and see an airplane fly over that you worked on the day before. You had part in taking care of that.
I believe from the time that you've done this for a number of years.
Correct.
And give me some success stories. Tell me a couple of little stories about folks who really just, it's enhanced their life to get this training.
I had the opportunity to get a real good friend in. Had got the corporate leveraged out. He was a independent contractor that had a pesticide business, and he was bought out by a major national corporation. And after the paperwork, he signed a non-competition clause, and after his one-year contract was up, they laid him off and retained his customers. He was very deep in financial trouble, and I helped him get in the class, and he's now at the $66,000 level at Tinker Air Force Base. Quick recovery, a new career, but that's just one of the hundreds stories that I could have. You know, one of the guys that came through was making $13,000 a year when he came through the class, and now he's a unit chief in $80,000 range, and I kind of wonder why I'm still an instructor. That's a lot of good money.
Well, because you enjoy it.
Well, I do.
And tell me again, how long is the class?
Well, the classes are 2 6-week segments during the day, broken up by a 2-week break time where we have time to decompress. The night classes are the same amount of hours, but because the night classes are not as long, it takes three 9-week segments with 2 breaks in there. And then once you're eligible, all the documentation that we give you gives you the right accreditation to apply for an entry-level job at any of the facilities around the Oklahoma City area.
This has been so much fun, and our time has gone by quickly. Kenny, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Kenny Payton, Aircraft Assembly and Structural Repair Instructor, Francis Tuttle Technology Center. We'll need to get an update on this as time goes on.
Well, stop by and see us.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Safety training is so critical in all levels of business and industry. I have with me Richard Broom, who's the Industrial Coordinator, and Steve Stockwell, Chief Officer of Business and Industry Services with Metro Technology Centers. Metro Technology Centers is in the forefront in safety training and in many other areas. And as a matter of fact, Steve, let's start out and just kind of get an outline of the opportunities and programs that are presented.
Okay, first of all, as we're talking about employee development or workforce development, safety is a part of what we do. We train a great number of people each year in safety. We have contracts with large organizations such as Utilities Department of Oklahoma City, and we also worked with the individuals that were building the Devon Tower. And the interesting thing about that is that when we first started the training, we were training OSHA required classes in English. But due to the economy at that time, we had workers coming from all over the country because of the work that allowed, and English was not their only language. And therefore, we had to find individuals who could teach this as OSHA-approved instructors that were both bilingual in English and Spanish.
And that was kind of an ongoing process then.
Yes, yes. And one of the big things there was fall protection, obviously. And we're proud to report that there were no workplace fatalities during the building of that
And
site.
that's with 6,000
Yes.
construction workers.
Yes, yes, over about a 3-year period. Yes,
That's fantastic.
Yes.
That's great.
yes. Well, we're proud of that, but that was due to a partnership. It wasn't just Metro Tech that caused that to happen. So we were a part of that. Obviously, the organizations had to support the training and require it in the first place.
And that coordination is so important.
Yes.
Wow. And of course, we were talking about safety training, but as you were telling me, there is a multitude of other services
Yes.
that you provide.
Yes. We do small business training to help new entrepreneurs as they get into business to learn what they need to find out in regards to maybe business plans, marketing plans, and so forth. And we teach those both in English and Spanish, as well as computer applications, where we do the Microsoft Suite, which a lot of people do, but we're the only authorized Apple and Adobe training center in the state of Oklahoma. And we bring about 40% of our clientele come from out of state. So we enjoy the folks bringing their money in state and spending that money in state while they're here for 3 days to a week.
Absolutely. We want that economic development from all aspects.
Yes.
And what I see here too with the high technology and how that integrates in, because it does, it integrates into safety training.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Things are becoming more computerized. Richard, you have been working with the city of Oklahoma City.
Yes, I have.
And I'm hearing some good things about that.
We have a great safety program, training program with Oklahoma City Utilities Department. And we started with implementation of this program about 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago. And I'm really excited about the program, what we've done. We have reduced injuries over 50% in that 7-year program, along with the administrative policies the city implemented during that time period. And we have a good partnership. Every year we tweak or change, modify our safety training just a little bit every year. And we're proud of our accomplishment, what we've done with the city.
And what you're doing as a part of the programs at Metro Technology, I think people would be curious. They're thinking a 50%, over 50% reduction. What are some of the ingredients that came into play to allow that to happen?
Well, we did a uniform training across the board with all the city divisions, where we set a standard of training with all the departments. And we went out and basically looked at the jobs, what they do, and the hazards they come across their jobs, and then we try to customize their training to fit what they need. And that's how we had great success doing that. We also come up with minimum training standards for the city of Oklahoma City Utilities Department, where we are going to teach this in each certain criteria in each subject in every safety class we teach for them. So all of our instructors understand what they got to perform in each class, and what to cover in the testing and so forth.
So there's a continual process of customizing.
Yes.
As opposed to cookie cutter.
Right.
Yes.
So that it's going to really apply to their unique circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. And every year we're going to less classroom to more hands-on training as well. And we find that to be more beneficial because students learn more by doing hands-on training than sitting in a classroom setting.
And that leads me to say, where are some of the places that your training takes place?
Well, we do it at different locations. We do it at each city location, utilities location, as well as Metro Tech itself. We do a lot of our hands-on training at different locations throughout the city. And it depends on what the class is. It's what determines the location.
And that's part of the customizing.
Right.
It might not
Absolutely.
be so appropriate in the classroom as it would
Absolutely.
be in that particular
Absolutely.
area. And let me ask you the same question, Steve, when we talk about where training is done.
We offer our clients the option whether they want to come to our location or at their location. And with the 12 to 15,000 people that we train a year, we can't train them all in brick and mortar. So we customize it to what works for them. Some classroom training at our facilities, but many times the client wants to have training at their own facility using their own equipment. And so we can do that too.
Well, this once again, I keep going back to customizing.
Yes.
That it's customized. But also, I see two facets here. We talk about safety training. Why is it important? It seems like you've got the physical situation of avoiding injuries, but don't you also have the regulatory aspects people better be aware of?
Yes, absolutely.
And how does that come into play?
Well, OSHA requires each employer to train their own individuals or have them trained in the hazards that pertain to them. So we will assist an organization in outlining what kind of training, but the employer is the final judge that says they need more or they need something that is customized. But OSHA regulates that, and OSHA inspectors can come in at any time and double check a workplace. And so with our clients, that's not something that keeps them awake at night. It's something that they can be steadfast that we're taking care of those obligations.
Because by coordinating with them, they're able to make sure, and you know how to put them in the best position to deal with those things.
Yes, yes.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is so multifaceted that let me ask you this. Let me ask you about the future. Mm-hmm. What kind of expansion do you see? Do you have room for expansion? It sounds
Yes.
like you're doing a tremendous
Always.
amount of training already.
Yes. Well, again, many of the clients like training at their facility, so we can expand and move from there. Right now, the city of Oklahoma City has noticed the positive results that have come from the partnership with us in the utilities department, and we're currently looking at additional departments within the city to help bring them on board and standardize in their safety training as well. But the thing also that's interesting, safety is kind of a door opener, because typically a client will say, well, Richard, you do a really good job at this. Do you guys get involved with, and they'll name something else that is another item that they need some assistance with. And Richard has customized and handwritten some curriculum for the utilities department, probably 6 or 8 separate sets of curriculum that meet just their needs, that's not right off the shelf. So it opens the door to other things. And so he's written that, and about 4 or 5 years ago we wrote some curriculum for the utilities department in a succession format to help in the soft skills, to help new supervisors that are coming into the workplace because the baby boomer is retiring. So that is given an opportunity for people to advance, and they need new skills that they didn't have in the previous one. So again, it's something that when the client sees that what we do is successful and it works for them and it helps them and helps their employees, then they turn to us for other training as well.
And that means that you all are good listeners.
We'd like to think so.
Because in order to determine other potential opportunities and ways to help, this is a great turnaround in education over the last 20 or 30 years from when it was just cookie cutter programs. And the immense potential of approaching it this way, as you all are right on the forefront of doing that. Let's speak some more to that, Richard, of going in and listening. How powerful is that, and what does that bring forth?
It's understanding what the customer wants. And the bottom line, what we try to do is, in the safety training aspect, is reduce injuries and bring people to work every day. And this saves money for utilities department, and it brings better morale, more productivity to the department as well, and it makes it more profitable, less cost savings for the city on on the rates.
You have physical value to it, people
Yes.
not getting injured, but you have psychological value
Oh,
to
yes.
it also.
Oh, yes. We try to prove morale, cost savings. It just all comes together.
Well, what is the future looking like for these programs? Who would like to speak to that?
Well, I think the future looks very bright. We get great support from our administration for customized training that we need to do. We get great support from Career Tech in things that they see as a need as well. And we get one of our new areas, or our expanding areas, is also in the health career field. Because again, baby boomers are retiring, so we need medical individuals to move into those positions. And so we're doing a number of classes to help in a career ladder that someone can come in at a very basic training position and then work their way up in a hospital or a nursing home or some other health center. And so that's just another form of workforce in development, is training people for new job skills.
And is there anything growing faster than the medical field?
We haven't found it yet.
Haven't found it. It may be out there.
It may be.
And so that is such an opportunity for individuals to develop their future.
Yes, absolutely.
And how is that expanding with you all in programs?
Well, we have classes both in the day and the evening in our division for individuals who want to get into the health career field. So they can come in and train to be a CNA, a certified nursing assistant. But then they can move into, in a few months, into a certified medication aide. And so there's a career ladder that they can work. So if they work in the daytime, they could take classes in the evening. If they work in the evening, they could take classes in the daytime. So again, customizing in the schedule, so it works around people's schedule so that they can still advance and still continue with their family and their work obligations.
Doesn't that really make it valuable when you can customize the time frame to where it works for people and they're not having to make difficult choices as to when they get there?
Yes.
And doesn't that also affect the way that you produce programs looking at the availability of those individuals' time?
Yes, we do. And what we try to do, we try to give the best training we can in the shortest amount of time, and make sure the customer gets what they need. So, yes, that's what we try to do.
In Richard's case with the Utilities Department of Oklahoma City, he conducts and he coordinates approximately 750 to 780 classes per year, individual classes. And that speaks to different divisions within that department as well as the different needs within that. So that's a large number of classes each year that he's personally responsible for coordinating with instructors, curriculum, space, and so forth.
It sounds like the growth is going to be continual.
Yes, yes.
And it's so important that people know about this, and as you were mentioning, all age groups
Yes.
Oh, yes.
can benefit. I guess someone who's even still in high school but wanting to maybe get a CNA or do something to enter into the medical field.
Yes.
They would be in a position to be able to do that. Wow, there are so many things that we could talk about. Our time has gone by. Richard Broom, thank you for joining us, Industrial Coordinator, and Steve Stockwell, Chief Officer of Business and Industry Services with Metro Technology Centers. We'll have to catch up with you in a couple of years and just see what other phenomenal things are happening.
Please do. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to it.
Thank you very much.
How do we develop the best highway to connect industry-needed training with the largest eligible pool of job seekers? This is such an important question, and I'm going to be talking with Jeannie Burris, who's Workforce System Coordinator, Emmett Grayson, State Youth Coordinator, and Vicki Deering, Employer Workforce Services and State Rapid Response Coordinator with Oklahoma Office of Workforce Development, stationed at OSU-OKC. I want to start out with you, Emmett, because you work with the youth in this area. Outline a little of that program series.
Well, in our youth program, Our new law came in effect on July 1 of this year, the Workforce Investment and Opportunities Act. And our youth program took a big shift. In the past, under the Workforce Investment Act, 70% of our funds were focused on in-school youth, with the remaining 30% that could be focused on out-of-school youth. But it looks like Congress and the Department of Labor got it right this time, where the focus has shifted to the out-of-school youth because we have an alarming number of dropouts. And so now the big focus is where our local partners are required to spend at least 75% of their money on out-of-school youth. And there's a big emphasis on work experience as well.
Because you've got that at-risk factor that we don't want to be at risk.
Yes, you have those, the hard to serve, again, your dropouts, parenting youth, and then you also have those who have been involved with the penal system at some point in time that are really those who are vulnerable.
And so at this point, how long has this shift been going on? Is this very recent?
Well, this was July 1. The WIOA law, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, it was effective July 1 of this year. And so now, again, that's where we're moving forward to until Congress decides to make another change. But it means for what we did traditionally, we'll use as a platform. But now we're going to just have to shift and focus on more recruitment to reach those youth who are lost, because some of those youth have been incarcerated. Some of those youth are in foster care. And some of those youth are just totally disengaged. And so we'll just have to rethink what we've normally done to find youth so that we can serve them.
You've got a wide terrain of people in different situations. So what are some of the, if you will, customized methodology for reaching them?
Well, we have our Oklahoma Works Centers. That's for our funding, that's where most of our effort starts at. It's at those Oklahoma Workforce Centers, and we have youth service providers that have been contracted out by our local partners to do recruitment, either in the school. The schools have access to dropout lists. There's questions as to how successful we have been at reaching out-of-school youth or reaching those youth that need more help through that system. So again, it just goes back to looking at the strategies that worked and build off of those. Because if you think about how easy we can lose a youth to the penal system, we really don't want to start over and reinvent the wheel. We want to take those things that are working and build off of that. So it just takes a lot of partnerships, local partners, nonprofits, your church, state and government that's also going to play a big role.
Seems like one of the critical things is going to be coordination between all of those partnerships.
Absolutely. Coordination is very important. We have our system partnership, and one of the focuses has been to get away from the siloing, where in the past I have my system, I have my training program, and this is our work group. But now what we want to focus on is, again, more coordination. So because the ultimate goal is to save our youth, so why not work together?
And I think that's such a dynamic way to approach it. Vicki, let's talk a little about the area in which you're involved.
Okay, well, one of the areas that I'm involved in is career pathways. And that's an attempt to serve youth and adults, helping them get into a pathway that will lead them to a career that they really are interested in, that we know there are jobs available, and to make sure that they take the steps necessary to get to their end goal.
How do they move into this process?
Well, an example would be our Dream It, Do It programs that we have across the state. This is a career pathways effort for manufacturing. And in these efforts, the schools, the parents, the teachers, the kids, we're trying to get them into manufacturing facilities to see what's available, all the jobs that are available, to help them understand that manufacturing is really a clean occupation, a very challenging.
And very highly technical.
And very technical. And also, manufacturers don't just need people who are in the operations side, but they need accountants, purchasing agents, all kinds of people in manufacturing, HR people. So, so our job is to help them understand the available careers, help teachers understand what goes on so that when they're in the classroom, they can do applied learning. They can do, they can teach in context the things that they're teaching. And it's very important, this is a very important issue in terms of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. A lot of the jobs that are in manufacturing are STEM jobs, so we have to help our schools get that beefed up too.
Coordinating, what's your process of outreach?
Well, every school system has to decide that they want to do this, and we encourage them, we work with our employers to help them talk to their schools to understand, help the schools understand what is needed in business and industry, whether it's manufacturing or any other occupation. So we do a lot of work trying to get business and industry and educators together, and parents too. They have to be a part of the formula and get everybody knowledgeable about what needs to be done and how it can be done.
When we call this workforce development, this is truly workforce development.
Absolutely.
Because of all of your immense areas of coordination that have to happen. And are we seeing that as that coordination begins to happen, does it get a little easier over time? It's like the glove starts to fit?
Absolutely. We are definitely seeing that. We have a lot of pockets of excellence around the state. We had a Career Pathways meeting today, and we talked about many of the examples that are happening all across the state, and we're learning from one another and getting ideas and networking, that sort of thing, so that we can get other school systems and other communities involved.
This is very exciting, and Jeannie, I'm going to ask you to talk about where you fit into this whole scheme.
Well, let's see. Going back to what Emmett said about the Workforce Investment Act, it was written back in 1998. We have just changed the law, and it is now Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. The Workforce Investment Act was a mandate for the publicly funded workforce system to get together and try to build a comprehensive system to help with workforce development. That was really hard for us to grasp onto, and especially being in a siloed funded system.
Yes, yes.
So when the Workforce Investment Act came in July of this year, it mandated this a little stronger. So you saw the list of agencies that are actually
I'm
involved.
looking at them here, and it's long.
It's very long, but they are very much on board now, and I think what they were waiting on is just for the governor, who is now the Oklahoma Works champion, waiting on her to say, yes, let's do it. And we're trying to blend workforce development, education, and employment all in one scope to have the outcome of being employment and creating wealth for Oklahoma.
What a value finally having a holistic outlook is going to be.
Oh my goodness!
To the entire state.
It's very exciting to us as workforce development. What we're doing is focusing on the business needs now. We did not do that before. We told them what they needed. Now we are saying, what do you need? We'll fill that need. So, and that has been. We have engaged so many businesses after we let them know that we were wanting to fill their need. So we're very excited about Oklahoma Works. I know that you all are probably aware that the governor actually initiated this Oklahoma Works project, and we're right behind her. We're going right on her coattails. So.
Moving out of the silos and listening to one another, it's amazing what we can learn.
Oh, it's amazing. We're not throwing daggers at each other at the table. We're actually working together. So.
And this is and will have immense value for the state of Oklahoma in many facets.
Oh, yes.
Not just economic, but psychological, people's self-image, values, youth, seeing that they have a future, that there are things they can do, ways to build their life, and individuals becoming introduced to different aspects of education that they can then go out and actually work and use on a business level that has applicability on a business level. This is too much to talk about in such a short period of time, but any other thoughts on this?
Well, I was going to tell you why we actually jumped onto this. We got a graph, or the governor had us run some statistics to let us know why there was a gap and how we needed to fill it. The jobs right now require 22.9% just to have a high school education to be able to get those jobs. Then it has 50% of those jobs have to have college or more. Not too long before that's going to be just the reverse and be where we have to have more education, more credentials to be able to fill those jobs. So we realized we have a gap and we have to fill it. So,
and let's talk about another piece of reality, and that's marketability of education. We're seeing that begin to change, aren't we? To the better, to understanding the marketability.
Oh, yes, yes.
We definitely need to market education, for sure. And we also, the fact that we need to make sure that our students are coming out with marketable skills, and that the schools understand.
Because there's such a difference in pay scale, it just depends on the profession. If it's healthcare, it's exploding right now. But the thing is, you're giving them an opportunity to see the broad horizon and select where their capabilities or desires would be. And that makes a big difference also.
Right.
Through the youth effort, we have learned that if we don't catch them by the 3rd grade and present them with a career pathway or the opportunity to decide what they are interested in, then we've already lost them. So that's the reason he's working so hard with the youth too.
That is an amazing statistic to think of that as the 3rd grade. But you know, in other countries, it starts young.
It definitely does.
And go ahead, Emma.
But just as Jeannie said, losing them in the 3rd grade. And what our goal is even though we shifted the big focus on out-of-school youth, we want that number of out-of-school youth to drop down. The ultimate goal is we'll expand our funding to serve as many as we can, but we'd like to see that number shrink. We want, because at that K through 3rd grade, at K through 8th grade, that's where we want to be really focused to keep them on track towards their career pathways.
We're calling it prevention and recovery, and we're going to do it.
We need to have another program just on that, because the kids leave school and they're thinking, why am I learning this stuff? What's the value? When that question gets answered, then a lot of things start happening.
You know, when we also have programs, when we have good counselors and good counseling available, and counselors can actually take the time to counsel instead of give tests and some of the things, other duties they have, that will help.
And less paperwork.
Yeah.
It's wonderful having you all here. I wish we had more time. I'm having to wrap it up. Jeannie Burris, Workforce System Coordinator. Emmett Grayson, thank you for being here. State Youth Coordinator, and Vicki Deering, Employer Workforce Services. You all are doing a very valuable thing that will be part of rewriting history. And so I'm very happy and delighted to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've looked at workforce training, highly specialized to closely serve business needs, incorporating various avenues to enter into well-designed programs, creating an educational mix that fuels the engine of Oklahoma's economic growth.